like to welcome everybody and call this Manchester Community Schools Board Work Session to order. If you'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we don't really have a big agenda here. Oh, we do have a big agenda, but we don't have an agenda. We have a lot of things to talk about. Does anybody have any comments they want to start with?
Let's keep this an hour and a half.
Okay. Between the last session and this session, the Facilities and Finance Committee, Dave Z and Dr. Lippy, we had a meeting, very, very positive meeting. Talked about a lot of ideas, and so here we are again. Randy, do you have the strategic plan list for the high school?
No, I do not.
What is you have a doc camera or anything?
I've got a.
That's something to look at.
I've got a copy.
You got a copy?
I got copies.
No.
I can.
We put
We'll
it
have
up
to
on
know
the
when
screen
it's
is what I was looking for.
Okay.
Let me check and see if I happen to have.
Okay.
Actually, it might be under shared.
Well, while we're getting to that, the Facilities and Finance Committee asked Dr. Lippy and Dave to come back and talk to the core committee. And one of the primary questions was the junior high building, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that a possibility? We've taken our district to 2 transitions in a child's education versus 3 was one of the questions. And the other one was talking about a central cafeteria and, shorten the walk up between the buildings and repurposing space for the other things on the strategic plan list for the high school. So, Dr. Lippy, did you?
I just kind of recap.
Right.
Is this a copy? Yeah. I'm trying to see if I can find the shared file.
Let me go scan it. I can get it.
So, I think, just came away from the meeting, and what was the date? We were back in May, I think, that we met.
Yeah.
I think Dave and I kind of went into that, not sure what to expect. And we came back to the group. I invited, I don't know that everybody that was here could make the meeting that next morning, but we tried to share out that we were encouraged. I think Dave and I just walked away very encouraged and felt like, hey, things are positive, just like you said. And we want to represent this group because they've got lots of people behind them that have kind of supported and they've gathered input from, and not that everybody perfectly agrees. I mean, it's never going to be that, but I felt like we were pretty well synced. And that's what the result of the strategic plan is. That's why I keep pointing back to this, because I felt like cumulatively we could agree on these things. We had some priorities developed. It was thorough, honest, transparent. We tried to leave no stone unturned, and so I thank them for their work. And they put in 2 years, and I appreciate them sticking in there with us. And so when it was presented to us that it does not look like the board would support 7th grade coming to the high school, that was like eureka for us, because that's what we were already there. We were thinking we would do that, taking that for the team. We thought, if that's what the team needs us to do with an additional classrooms, we might be able to make that happen. But really, that's not at all what we had gathered from our stakeholders and from people with input in our building team. In fact, it was the exact opposite. I think Dave shared that you just made like the core group, like that makes them happy knowing that 7th grade would still be in another building just because of the space and it's a, that transition, putting 7th graders in with 12th graders, it's a challenge. And they had done this before, they've experienced it, and it didn't go well, and therefore they went back and brought 7th grade back to this building. So I didn't live through that, but that was clearly shared to me by many stakeholders. In fact, I didn't hear anybody say that was a great idea. So they embraced that. The other part that came up during the meeting that Dave and I attended with you three gentlemen and our Dr. Grimaud was the idea of putting the cafeteria into the hub somewhat. And instead of trying to renovate a space where we're kind of landlocked or locked in space, that the consideration was maybe pushing that in there. Now, we're one part of the equation. We know that. This makes up maybe a little more than a third because you've got MIS pouring into this, MES pouring into this, and we want to be responsible citizens. We're not. There's nobody here that wants a blank check. We want whatever happens to be sustainable and to impact students in a positive way. And if I'm misspeaking on anything, so guys, please call me out. I really want to make sure that the core group, you're feeling like we are represented. And I'm speaking for you, just on your behalf. So that was a positive thing. And Becky, I said, really, Becky is that person. She's the one, is that going to work for Becky? And from the get-go, Becky really imagined that being, that's what she called pie in the sky. The pie in the sky, her dream would be to have the cafeteria extended out past where currently the FFA room is and the shop class. And I think David indicated that when, just when he personalized thinking of where that would go, that's where he thought should be is out there. And so when we talked as a group, I felt like everybody harmonized. It was our number one. It's one of the top needs that our priority list came through was doing something with food service, a renovation or expansion in our cafeteria. So we were encouraged. We were very encouraged. And yeah, there's some other things here, and we've been able to pick off some of these things as grant money comes available. We've got a spirit pump down here at the trading post. Sometimes they give us some money. Well, we go to this list and say, hey, what can we get? So we bought the ag tables. I know Gwen's not here right now. I don't know if she's going to be here, but that was a big thing for her. And we heard that from her stakeholders, that those ag tables, that helps set their program apart and just helps really. And then we got a podium. We had some grant money that we went out and purchased a podium for the media center. The iPads for our math teachers was huge for the way they instruct math. It's on the list. We were able to check those things off. So not all of it's, we're going to come to you and ask for raising taxes or bond issues. No, we want to try to take care of these things on our own the best we can. So, and we're doing that. But some are a little bit bigger than that. I don't know if that's what you wanted, but that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, just a summary of how the meeting went, that would suffice. I will say to the board, Jeremy's made contact with Boundary Bond Management. They will be here at our regular board meeting in July to give us another opportunity and options, am I saying that correctly, on funding our strategic plan. They're a little bit newer company and they're pretty aggressive. Just goes with getting quotes on everything that we do. I guess, the board's kind of talked here and there. Is there anybody opposed to a central cafeteria?
Not me.
Okay, because what I'd like to suggest is if we we can't vote or all we can do is have a consensus because this is a work session, but like Dr. Lippy says, Becky's going to have to be at the forefront if we're going to build a new central cafeteria and shorten that 735 feet of distance between the two buildings up and have I don't envision it as a cafeteria. I envision it as a great space that could be used by the community, could be used by our internal organizations, you know, for dinners, awards presentations, and like I said, it shortens up that distance, and then whatever else we decide to do in the next 3 to 5, 7 years, eventually they all, maybe the buildings get connected. My point is, if we have consensus that this needs to be in part of phase one, whatever amount we decide that we want to spend in phase one, I would like to have Becky and Dana Wanamaker and a couple representatives from the facilities committee to start putting up a drawing, conceptual drawing of what it might look like, how big it might be, because I don't have any idea. Now there's a set of blueprints floating around that I got my hands on. Feel free to take a look at the second page. There's some pretty innovative stuff that Hagerman did for Bluffton Harrison. It keeps the chillers and the air conditioners and that kind of stuff off of the roof, and it keeps it off of the ground. It's actually in the building, but it's not. They put a ceiling over top of the faculty dining area with access doors to the outside. There's a service where it can be serviced, but if they have to replace something, they can open the doors and drive a lull in and remove the thing. And so when their building's 20 years old and they have to put a roof on it, they don't have to deal with any of that stuff. So there's some pretty innovative ideas. So I don't know, like I said, so, do we want to have Dana and Becky and the facilities committee start moving forward with a conceptual drawing so we can start moving forward on this?
Well, I think, first of all, I mean, is this something that we want to pursue? And secondly, then we ought to not only look at like doing the drawings aspect, but we should take some tours of some nearby facilities so that we start getting ideas
And we do,
of what we want to do.
We do have an invitation from the assistant superintendent at Bluffton Harrison to send a group or multiple groups, you know, depending on how many board members want to go. We all can't go together to tour there. It's a brand new elementary school, but the focus was on the cafeteria. And there's another one in Columbia City.
Yeah, they just built a brand new school.
Yeah. We're live streaming this, Becky, if you step to the podium, please.
She's pulling double duty tonight. There's food being delivered over here, and she's here at the same time, so.
Yeah, trying to do two things at once, and I'm not really sometimes good at one, so.
This is common.
Anyways, so, couple questions. Do you know how many students are at Bluffton Harrison in this particular building? That would be really helpful in knowing space.
No,
Oh, we
I
probably can
don't.
find that out.
You know, the idea was to look at the furnishings and the layout. The size would be determined by Mr. Wanamaker and you. I'm not an architect, I don't. You know,
Okay,
the only thing I would say is, if we think we need it for 800 students, let's build it for 1,200, so that we don't have to come back in 5 years and add on to it. If STEM and SACA and all these other things work and our enrollment grows. And the other thing is if we're gonna be able to use it for FFA dinners, award dinners, heaven forbid we have a catastrophe in our community and we need to feed the public, you know, is what I'm thinking. But no, I can't tell you, I don't know how many students they have in there. It's an elementary school.
682.
682 K through 4th grade.
Okay.
So, you know, especially when we're looking at, you know, maybe multiple grade levels and maybe some that we don't currently have at this time, you know, I was just thinking space-wise, and so I want to think through some logistics in my mind when I go out to look at these places. The other thing I would suggest, and it's respectfully because you know, whatever you say, I'll do, yeah, anyways. And that would be, I would like to have the other input from other people, not just me, because I know the kitchen, and it's a little bit like the issue that we're having right now. I'm back there, we're trying to get meals out. We have a truck that went down at at 4 o'clock, I found out I wasn't gonna have the reefer truck to MES, so now I'm sending 2 people over there telling me they all have to come to high school. I see there's a big long line, but I don't know that it's all the way to 9th Street. Because we're just trying to do what we're doing right here, and so I just think it would be helpful, I mean, it's helpful when other people help out there, but it would be helpful to have people look at this space. What does somebody else want it, what do they envision it to look like? Do you have some kind of need? Do you have some kind of, I don't have all the answers. I mean, really,
Are you
seriously.
talking about like Dr. Lippy, is that what, or are you talking
I don't
about the
care.
people that work for you?
I think for me, it's open.
It'd be people in the areas that'd be impacted by, you know, that cafeteria, like, if that's on the end there, that's Gwen and Dr. Hook's areas, I mean, and then it's Dr. Hook, sorry.
I mean, okay, for instance, well, okay, and that just made me think of, so, you know, okay, yes, if it impacts their areas, do they want 300 kids lining up outside their front door, basically? Probably not. But, you know, I might not have thought about that. And so I just think that, you know, I would like some input on the people that impacts their space.
Well, you know, we were talking about was getting a perspective idea with a small group of people, and then you, Dr. Lippy, whomever, would take that back to the
Okay.
core committee, and then
Yeah.
you folks all look at it and say, hey, you didn't think of this, or, hey, what
Right.
about that? That's the way we envision. We
Good.
can't get anything done with 30 people.
No, you can't, and I
So,
agree with that.
you know,
So I was
that's-
just hoping somewhere along the line there'd be
Oh,
input
yeah,
from other
absolutely.
people. Just,
But I'll volunteer,
Think of the
Mr.
things.
Hensley.
The other thing would be like, so I was kind of reviewing that list, and look, I'm a little confused about where that list is, right? If that's the old one, or you guys have updated that since you met with finance and facilities, but like, you had in there like you wanted that open space, ripping out the media center and stuff. So also thinking about, you know, is that an integration possibility? Does it have to be there, or could we work that in as part of like that cafeteria or something?
a lot
You know, so just trying to satisfy, you know, you said trying to satisfy everybody's needs with kind of win-win-win situations in the strategic plan.
Well,
You
what,
just stole Dr. Lippy's thunder, but now we'll send him to the
Just,
podium.
again, we weren't architects, and we were tasked with what were things that we felt like rose to the top of needs lists. And right behind cafeteria, and tell me if I'm wrong, was the need for a room with multiple screens for kids to present in. For workspaces in front of screens where we envisioned 6 to 8 screens and probably a room similar to this in size, maybe a little smaller, where kids can sit at a workstation working in a team. We see this a lot in business world, and when we find the need for teachers to do this, where they're sitting in their little core group of 6, and they want to share their presentation all around the room so that every group of kids sitting in front of a screen are seeing their presentation on their workstation and then take turns in presenting. So we felt like that was one of the things we heard across the board from teachers, from community input, kids. We really tried to listen to see what was harmonizing, what rose to the top. And after food service, I think it was clear, doing something renovation with the cafeteria, this was right on the heels, and then right on it, piggyback would have been the Business Innovation Center. And that kind of got its start early because we had a local donor, it's still there. How long, we don't know, right, Shelley? I mean, but they're gonna need to see a little skin in the game, so when we're talking about some money that was left out of the CARES Act 3.0, there's another thing we could think of. Maybe that's the way, in fact, Shelley shared that with me, was that this morning? When did I see you? That maybe that's a way that it will show our local donor enough that, okay, you threw some skin in the game, here's now some money to put towards the Business Innovation Center. The bean, we kind of envision maybe some work-based student projects in there, whether it's laser cutters, screen printing. I don't want to speak for you. If I'm leaving anything out, please fill in. But just some things where students can make student-produced merchandise or whatever. We can put that in for sale, put it in like vending machines. We saw this at the school on fire down in Kentucky a couple years ago, Eminence, how their kids are always on display, their work, and that's certainly something Shelley connected with, our partner connected with that, they love that idea, and so we don't wanna wait too long on that one. So, you know, cafeteria, certainly that's one of our top needs, if that's doable, that's something I could highly recommend if we could move forward. The business center probably needs to be on seals, but there's some money put there for that, it would just require a little skin in the game from us to maybe tilt this. Am I saying that fairly, Shelley? I mean, I think they just need to see something, not just here's a free check.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I say something to that? I've had a lot of time to dream, just like everybody else has, about this whole thing, and will continue to dream throughout the whole thing. But one of the things that I had dreamed about was if we do this central cafeteria, suddenly the whole old cafeteria and kitchen are completely open, which leaves room for a good section, maybe the double door entrance to the beam. It leaves a section for an art gallery, and then it leaves a section for the media center, all in that old cafeteria space, to reutilize that. That's just something that I've dreamed about with it. Not obviously set in stone, but just something to think about on that.
Part of that is in the discussions in the meeting with Dr. Lippy and the facilities committee is we have this grand hallway entrance at the PAC. When it gets to the cafeteria, that space could be repurposed in the area where Becky prepares food right now. You could have the bean sitting in the corner where the kids sit and eat. If you visualize this now, those walls are gone. That's your media center. The bean is back in the area where Becky prepares the food in the corner, you know, with new furnishings, whatever, but you would have two doors, one that could serve people right into the media center if necessary, one into the hallway. You could put up a nice neon sign, you know, kind of like they used to have in car dealerships, parts here, here's the bean. I'm all about this in entrepreneurial and teaching kids how to run a business. But to Robert's point, when you turn right, that hallway could be redone going to the north past the boiler rooms with tilt frames where student art could be displayed. You could have new lighting, new wall coverings, and we're not chewing up any educational space doing that. We're actually creating more educational space for the business, you know. And to Dr. Lippy's point about the other stuff, I mean, yeah, there's money left in the CARES Act. You know, just looks like that part looks like a win-win. But unfortunately, until we put some drawings together and talk to the architect, I don't know, anybody know what a cafeteria costs? Is it 5 million? Is it 10 million?
A lot. I know how much the equipment costs, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, would we be able to utilize any of the equipment we currently have?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so
Becky,
there's
I've got a
cost.
question for you. Now, when we're talking about combining and serving possibly, you know, maybe 5, 6, 7 with the high school, are those different meals that you're preparing?
Oh, yeah.
How would that work?
Okay, well, okay, just in my mind, I haven't done this on paper. I envision being able to serve a somewhat same menu, so we have a high school menu with all of it like it is now, and a scaled down menu of some sort, because calorie, the sodium, which they're going all back to all that stuff next year, I don't know how that's gonna work, sorry, just can't get the food we need now. And so, you know, those, and portion sizes, those are all different. So one set of people will be serving those, while another set, they would not be mingling or going through the same line, they can't.
So would you envision 2 different serving lines then, or
Oh, at least.
at least?
I mean,
Okay.
you know, you're gonna need more than one serving line for the high school. If you
Okay.
want to get them, part of the renovation or project is to get them through faster and more streamlined anyways.
Right.
So we would have to figure that out, and I'd be interested in seeing how some other schools do it,
Right.
just to get some ideas.
Just, and because you said something, I just want to bounce this off her, so without adding a bunch of more staff, right, because we still have to be
Right.
mindful of not, and finding staff's not the easiest thing if you did want. So without adding more staff though, how do you envision though speeding that up? Probably not cutting down, making it less lunches than 3, or is that what you?
Not necessarily, no, really, actually, I would have thought more, okay, without really just diving into this, really, does this really truly work? But I had an envision of maybe still 3 lunches, but but it would be only serving 4 grades instead of 5,
Yeah.
or 3 grades, and
That's
splitting them up and having smaller amount of kids going through at that time.
Because I think it was mentioned, go down to 2 lunches, but that creates a need for more staff, and we'd have more kids in line waiting, so we'd still want to try to keep it 3, and I don't know what, and you and I would work through that to see if 4 is quicker, is 3 quicker, but it won't
There you
waste
go.
instructional minutes.
Okay.
That, because they'll be in class, they're not sitting in line.
And I would like to point out, because we do have some new members on the board, this cafeteria problem was identified in 2017 in a facility audit, was again identified again in 2019 in a facility audit, is overcrowded, and then COVID just made the problem even worse because you had to space the kids out even farther. So, like I said, we got a lot of other things to talk about. I think the first step, if we're gonna consider this, is to give Becky and Dr. Lippy and the facilities committee the nod to reach out to Dana and start putting a drawing together and putting a price together so that when Bondry comes in July and the board figures out how much we wanna spend in the first phase, we can either consider this as the number 1, or maybe it's a number 3, or maybe it's in a phase 2, I don't know. We don't know how much money we're gonna spend yet, but we'd like to get started tonight, we still got the security stuff to talk about, so, like I said, we can't vote, so, Randy?
I want to give a little history. We did a project like this 15 years ago when we did the gym project. And I guess what I'm sitting over here going, we've got the cart way in front of the horse. I mean, we're talking about we're talking about details in this giant meeting that when we did the gym project, the board said conceptually, here's the space, we want a gym. We want it renovated, we want it modern, and here's the money, here's how much we've earmarked for it. We assembled a committee. We had, for the gym, we had administrators, we had coaches, we had AD, we had community members, we had all the stakeholders were on that committee, and it was a committee of about 10 of us. And we went and we sat down, and Dana was involved in that, and we sat down with the architect and kind of took the space we had and, kind of broke that up. But that took 10 minutes of a board meeting to get that started, all right? We did all of that behind the scenes, got all the stakeholders, and then we took tours, that group did. And then we brought that back to the board, and we did about probably an hour presentation to the board, showing them pictures of things we'd seen and the concept. They kind of gave the blessing, yeah, go ahead. Dana went, did some final plans, we brought it back. We did a 1028 hearing on it, we did all those things. Probably that whole project took about 3 hours of board time. And the problem is, that I'm concerned about is we're trying to make some minute decisions in a big group. And like I said, it feels like we're talking about a lot of details. It's almost like we're talking about what color paint are we putting on the walls already. But that's some of the stuff that it feels like we're talking about, and that's gonna take us forever.
No, all I was trying to advocate for is the fact that we get Dana and the people that are gonna be in this building to go look at some buildings and put something together and put some kind of a price on it, because nobody knows how much a cafeteria is gonna cost. And I don't think this is gonna be a $25 million project. It might be 3 10s, it might be 5 6s, you know, I don't know what it's gonna be. I don't think anybody here knows what it's gonna be, but we gotta put a price on that if that's what it's gonna, you know, at least
Right.
a conceptual price.
Right.
And Dana gave us some prices on redoing the entrances, so all we're trying to do is get an idea of what can happen in the first phase. You know, I wanna make this real clear, when we talked in the F&F committee meeting, we said we weren't throwing out anything. Some of it's gonna get pushed out here, and some of it's gonna happen in board. I mean, if I'm saying anything that you don't agree with, speak up, because not all of you were at the F&F meeting, so.
Well, I'll speak up a little bit. Randy mentioned that they had a dollar amount that you were to work with, right? And that's, we haven't decided. It seems to me like we should have a borrowing capacity. Like, what are we willing to spend in phase one? And that might make it easier for Dana and the crew to plan. Here's what you can get for what you're willing to spend.
So you give them an amount and they'll spend that.
That's the problem with the way it's typically been done. You know, it's like if you and I are running a business and we need a 40,000 square foot barn, we figure out what we need, and then we call the architects and say we need a 40,000 square foot barn. How much is it gonna cost? Okay, the way a lot of things have been done in the past, well, we got $26 million, what can you build us? Well, guess what, the price comes back to $26 million every time.
We had $2 million to do a $3 or $4 million project, is what that came down to. I mean, it wasn't, we didn't go out and try, I mean, it was trying to trim, trying to get value to get what we wanted for that amount of money. It wasn't that, oh, let's get this and this and this. No.
So let's cut to the chase tonight, okay?
What?
Here's where we are on this strategic plan. 2 years ago, this thing started. 2 years, right? A lot of hard work and a lot of planning went into it. There's a lot of people sitting right here, that's who I want to hear from.
You don't need to yell at me.
Whatever. What I want to know is what you guys want. If we, giving somebody a dollar amount and stuff, this is like putting a jigsaw puzzle together, is what it is. And the problem is, we don't have a box, right, with a picture on it right now to paint that vision, to put, if I came in here with a 500-piece puzzle and dumped it out on the table, right, and asked you to put that puzzle together, without looking at the box, how would that feel? So all this is about is we're trying to get the voice of the customer. We haven't had a hand in this over the last 2 years. So when we had those meetings, we went over there and you guys presented to us. All I want to know, honestly, is has everybody had a voice in what they want, and are you in agreement? Here, Randy's right. We're down in the weeds on this cafeteria. I mean, if you want a committee and we want to go after it, then that's what we need to do. We're not here tonight to settle that. I was in here until 9 o'clock last night, and so were a lot of you, and I don't want that to happen again tonight.
And like I said, I've been trying to move on, and all I want to hear from the board is, do you want a conceptual drawing? And Dana can work up a price and try and get this stuff ready for July when Bondry comes, and then we can make a decision, okay, we're gonna go whole hog and spend 25 million and put the district in debt for 25 years, or we're gonna do phases, or whatever it is we're gonna do, but we already have some prices on the entrances, if that's safety, if that's gonna be in the first phase, okay. That's all I'm trying to get through here,
So
Mike.
what I would suggest is, I don't think we need to do blueprints and drawings.
No, just a
But
conceptual.
what I would like, because it's tough, because on the one hand, you can say, well, how much can we borrow? And then on the other hand, you can say, well, what do we want? But I guess I would like to spend, just whoever it is from your group that wants to spend, an hour with Dana and say, this is kind of what we're thinking, give us a price. And no details at all. But he'll give us a ballpark, are we talking about 5 million or 50 million for what we kind of have envisioned? And that'll kind of give us the idea of, okay, we can do this, or this is just off the table, we can't do it, or or, you know, we're gonna have to scale it way back. It'll just give us a starting point, but it's real hard to, I mean, I don't see any point in getting into the details until we have a ballpark of what the cost is gonna be.
I can, the one spreadsheet that all of you should have, at one point, it's probably old now, or I forget how long ago we gave it. It was updated amounts, and a new central cafeteria was part of that under the high school piece. It was in sections, like Section A, Section B, Section C, and Section D. And Dana quoted roughly in Section C, to put in a new central cafeteria at 4,200 square feet at $225 a square foot was $945,000. And then a new central kitchen, so that's just the eating area. Then to add a kitchen at about 3,500 square feet was another $875,000. So those, essentially you're looking at about 1.8 million just in space. I don't believe that includes any equipment, tables, chairs.
You know how old those numbers are?
That would have been, they're probably a month and a half
Okay.
or so. They were the more current numbers once you had that one meeting. And so he did give us some of those numbers, but again, that's just 4,200 square feet eating area and a 3,500 square foot kitchen. So if we want bigger, then obviously we can get that footage and get a potential drawing or conceptual drawing.
So maybe spend a little time and just see, is that an adequate space? Do we need bigger? Do we need less? Is there something, you know?
I want to tell you, I identify with where Mike was about, like, if you just say you have 6 million, they'll go spend 6 million, because, I mean, I think we all are afraid of that, like, he'll just go spend it if you could do it for 3. After just working with Dana, and it's not been a lot, guys, I think he'll work with, like, I don't know that, and I get the reason why we'd be concerned that he would, but I don't think he'll do that. I think if we say, look, if it's gonna cost us 4 million, we wanna go 4, we don't wanna go 6 because we could spend 6. Our history with Dana, he's in it kind of for the long haul, like, he wants more projects from us, and if he did that to us, well, the word's gonna get out with other schools that he did that to them. So I guess there's a little, I mean, I just feel like there's a little more trust there, but we would definitely be mindful of that. But I think we could, Raj. To answer your question, yeah, I do think we could do that. And whether it's Becky and I, certainly, I would open that form to any one of these guys, because they've all poured into it. But I'm not, I'm not gonna sign up all 13 because they have put a lot of time in. But I think there'd be a couple that would step up that would have interest in this, to say, yeah, we can go with Dana, a couple hours, whatever it takes, and do this.
And then
Oh, and also,
just get a feel for if that's the kind of space we're looking at. If that,
and I would also remind everybody that, you know, we have a long-term relationship with Dana. You know, he was the architect on this roof. We put him under contract to help us with this. You know, hindsight's 20/20. I probably should have invited him to come here tonight, but again, we still don't have a number figure. But I'm just gonna do this. You guys are the core committee. You guys have put all the blood, sweat, and tears in this. Just give me a show of hands. Is there anybody that doesn't want to do a central cafeteria?
Feel free, I mean, if there's somebody, no one's gonna think any ill of you, I mean, just, if you're struggling with it, say so.
Yeah. I mean, there's no judgments or anything. We need to know, you guys got 2 years of work in this. If you don't think this needs to be number 1, just say so right now. Just put your hand up. Okay, so it looks like the core committee is in favor of doing this. So, like I said, we can't vote. You know, give me a head nod.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know if I'm in favor of doing it or not, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Because I don't, where I'm a little aggravated tonight is when you guys met in the finance facility, did you not direct them to kind of revise this list? And are we gonna go over this list and make sure that we're getting everybody else in here? Or is this, I mean, we've spent 40
This
minutes.
was only for the high school, and this lets us do 6 of the other things without building anything new. I guess maybe that's not.
I know all that.
Yes, we went over the list.
Okay, are we gonna go through the rest of the list?
That was the plan, but we're still stuck on
I can't make a
this.
determination on anything until I kinda know what the whole picture is about what we need. I guess that's only the high school. I mean, we haven't even talked about this building, you know, so that's one piece of it, so let's get a committee and go after it, use the numbers, whatever. But I mean, it's kinda hard to determine if you wanna spend, 200 and some million on cafeteria, right? When you don't really understand what else is out there that we need from there.
Again, we know what it's gonna cost to do the entrances, right? He's got it right there on the list.
Yeah, we've got the
We're just trying to prioritize the list and go through it, but we're
What
stuck
I'm
on
asking
this.
is there anything else? So that's Becky's vision, and I love it, I'm gonna be honest with you, right?
I'm a team.
Who else? So Shelley's got the Business Development Center. Mr. Hooks, we're doing soccer. Gwen, what about you? What do you need? That's kinda what, I kinda wanna hear from these guys tonight instead of, so. Is there something you need for FFA? Heck of a program, right? I mean, everybody's kinda got needs out here, and the big thing is to make sure that everybody's got a voice in what they want out of this, or what they really need. Eric?
One of the things I thought was really good about our group was when we first sat down, we said, we need to do what's best for every single student. Every single student goes to the cafeteria. And so that's where we first said, we see the need there. If a kid eats their lunch, it's gonna impact them in my classroom. I know I've had kids not eat lunch because of the crowd. So if we are helping them for the 25 minutes a day that they are eating lunch, it's gonna impact all of us elsewhere as well. So that's where I think why we are also, we need to make sure that they are eating, like they have a place to eat, they feel safe, all of that. A lot of other things on our list can trickle and happen with space. So because we moved here, we now have this space. So, we can now have a bigger space here. Even like, coaching, cheerleading. Sometimes I have nowhere to practice. If we have another cafeteria that's a little better than the one we have, I might be able to move some tables and go into there. So with a little extra space, somewhere where the kids can get a good lunch, the food is great, but I mean a good environment for lunch. I had a foster kid who wouldn't eat lunch because she couldn't handle the cafeteria, it was too crazy for her. We can work around the other things, and a lot of the other things naturally I think can come from just opening up one space and moving another.
The number one requested item, tiered lecture hall, multimedia space, other than the cafeteria.
And that's a substitute. And that's what I'm saying. When we met over the high school, I never heard one word about a cafeteria. The first time. Or did I miss something?
And can I speak on that?
Sure.
We were kind of all surprised by that.
Remote was there.
That wasn't our rendering. And we didn't meet with Dana. I'm not pointing fingers, but we didn't. And so we made the best we could with what we were handed that night. I didn't know I was presenting that night. I thought it was.
Okay, that's fair.
And Dana didn't know either. And I was like, when we showed up and Dana wasn't planning on presenting and then I take over for that meeting, I was a bit surprised. And we were all confused why cafeteria wasn't at the forefront. So Mike, I'm not sure.
See, that's where I'm coming. I want you guys to understand where I'm coming from on this. I just want to make sure you've actually had a voice in all this. There's stuff in sports that, lights for the baseball diamond, girls diamond, soccer fields. I mean, I just want to make sure we're getting everything on the table and not being real selective, because we want to build a long-term plan. And this thing may go, we may do it in phases, we may not, but we're talking, 5 to 10 years here at least. So that's my major concern. I work with businesses, right? And one of the biggest factors in a business is suppression. That's from top down. People are limited on and that's what I do for a living. I go into businesses, we do value stream mapping. We open things up. Everybody's got a voice about what impedes them from success on a daily basis, and we put it on the table. The managers are big people. They gotta be. Some of them aren't. Some of them are very defensive and they get insecure and they start, huffing and puffing. I'm like, take a deep breath, because this is gonna help you. And in the long run, when you build that plan and then you execute that plan, then everybody in the organization's happy. We've all, and I like to think like win, win, win. And that's what the cafeteria, when you said it, Becky, in that one meeting, all of our minds popped open and we're thinking, yeah, talk about filling in that space. How many different things would be satisfied with that, right? But I still, sitting here making, yeah, run with it. But I think, I want to make sure you guys, everyone in that building's satisfied and you're getting, basically, we've got all the pieces of the puzzle, so we can kind of put it together right? And I just feel like, it's easier if you have a bit, in organizations, you paint a vision, right, of kind of what you are. We got a lot of great things going on at MCS, and it seems like, the little negative things and conflicts and relationships and stuff kind of pop up, over and over again. But that's my biggest thing tonight, is make sure we've got everything we need on here. Then we can start to assemble this thing in a meaningful manner and make a plan. We're talking about bringing somebody for finance in July. It's like mid-June or getting there, right? That's like, we got like 3 or 4 weeks to get enough information to even talk to those people about how much we want to borrow and whether we're gonna do it in phases and stuff.
So,
like that.
after the Facilities and Finance Committee meeting that you guys had, has there been any other plans or thoughts since then that have developed at that point? I know that it came out with that, what Mr. Markham shared about the cost of a couple of extra items, but that was, I think, before, it might even been before that meeting. I just didn't know if there was any additional conversations after that Facilities and Finance Committee with the core committee or with any of that nature.
Was that your group? Was that what that was called, the Facility and Finance, the three?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the core group, it tried to stay true to their constituents and from what we gathered input. And I shared with the three of you guys, or actually Brian and Raju and Dave, that we really worked hard, and you guys called me out to make sure that we heard we listened to everybody. And as things stacked up, and you could see the little sticky notes, or whatever you want to call them, the green stars, I know that before you got on the board, you'd come to one of the open sessions.
Yeah.
And we really tried to let people have their voice and see where things started to develop and prioritize. We really did.
So one of the things I struggle with
Yeah.
is like, I hear that, and I mean, I knew you guys put in a lot of work, but we weren't in that process.
Yeah.
So what we saw was no central cafeteria, and 7th grade over in that building, and you guys are saying that you don't want that. So how did that? Why are you showing that to us?
So this is what we presented back to Dr. Grimaud. That you're not going to see anything about 7th grade over in our building. We were all confused by that. We didn't know why that was happening. That's not in. This is our construct, and if you look through it, it doesn't show up there. It also doesn't show 4, 5, 6 over here either, because that wasn't really we're 7 through 12. We didn't want to do something unto others when it's 7 through 12 is who we're representing. Central cafeteria, to us, it was pie in the sky for Becky as the vision there. Dave said that's kind of where he envisioned it. All we just needed was that the cafeteria get addressed. We didn't want to come in and say it needs to be here, blank check us, just whatever spend.
So none of the drawings, you guys had anything to do with any of the drawings?
No, and the one that you said, where did that come from? Why? Because you struggled with 7th grade being over there, right? I remember
I asked you, it's like, where did that come from? And you're like,
I can answer that.
We know, but we're also kind of part of this team, and so, Dave, do you know where it came from?
Yeah, it was from a while back when, I hate to talk about the things this community's been through, but it was trying to address the issue of the students walking back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just put them over there. And I guess I need to apologize to the board. I thought we were focusing on the safety and the security things. And when Becky was in our regular meeting and mentioned 2 things. One, the fact that was kind of a pie in the sky dream, and what hit home with me was when she said that there's parents that drop kids off here on 2-hour delay days because this is a safe place. They can get breakfast. felt like we needed to try and accentuate that. And then, you know, I'm a facilities guy. I raised all kinds of cane to get the roof fixed on this building. That was identified clear back in 16. We did a facility audit we paid for in 17, and the cafeteria was in it. I'm repeating myself again in 19. And then the security thing has been at the forefront of this right from the start, that we needed to fix it. So in my mind, I'm thinking this is phase one if we're only going to here. And then if the board decides that phase one's gonna be this big, then we come right to this and to the MES list and the MIS list and say, okay, here's the top 3 from each one of these buildings. What are we gonna do in the first phase? Or here's the top 6 in all 3 buildings, and what are we gonna do in the first phase or the second? Or we're a board, are we gonna do it all? We need recommendations and ideas from you. And you gotta keep it in mind, architects have to protect their reputation. Nobody's gonna tell you they can build a $5 million structure for $4 million. If they think it's gonna cost 5, they're gonna tell you 6. So when you identify what you wanna build, then you can do design build, you can RFQ architects, and you end up getting the best price. So, again, here we are, we've burned off almost an hour and we're still stuck on the same thing. So what do you wanna do, board? Do you wanna go down through this list? Do you guys?
What do you guys want to do this evening? Do you guys have a thought or?
This is a kind of priority. We're address them as we go. I wouldn't go through the list. I don't think anybody in here wants to go through the list. You guys want to go through the list? I think we could take a poll vote and you're going to get 100% not want to go through the list.
Okay.
You're asking. If I'm wrong, raise your hand if you want to go through the list. I guarantee you they don't.
John, didn't we go through and separate out into years that we thought at one point for each of these?
So we do have that document someplace. I don't know if we can get access to it.
It's this one right here, right? The pricing one.
This
is the original one.
That's the one. But I want to go back to Raju, because I think it's important because you want to know, why am I talking to you guys? We had the work session over at the building, right? Why was I speaking on 7th grade over there? And I felt like that's what I was being told to do. And I don't know if it was from previous boards that she felt like 7th grade needed to come to the high school, but Dr. Grimaud, I think, felt that's what the boards wanted. And maybe that was not the case. But when we found out that was the only way to get what the priorities were, we were willing to take one for the team, even though we didn't think 7th grade over there was the best idea. But it was the way to address some of these things. Now, we were confused about the cafeteria. I still am. I don't know why that didn't get on there. But it was kind of presented to me, here's what Dana come up with. We're going to come to your building in a work session. I assumed Dana was going to talk about that. Then it was like, John, you're up. And I'm like, I wasn't even in the big meeting. I just did the best I could with that. So, Raju, I apologize. I just felt like I was handed
I think that's why Mike is maybe a little bit pulling from you guys.
Yeah.
Do we have what we need to see
Yeah.
here?
Well, and that's why Dave, when we met with you guys, Dave and I came away encouraged. That's the things that Brian and Raju and Dave spoke on. Those are the things that are syncing with the committee. And I came back and told you guys, I'm encouraged. I think things are going to work out, because I wasn't sure what we were getting ourselves into.
So we need to make sure, don't assume, don't tell us what you think we want to hear, just tell us what you need.
Yeah, please, tell us what we want to, tell us what you want us.
But I think that's what we did.
Because there's,
what you're hearing now.
a lot of times, we come into this without knowing anything some days.
Well, it sounds like we have a little bit of a way to move forward with the central cafeteria and then the extra space to fill in.
I think we need to tie the security into it.
Yeah, there was, definitely. And there was you just mentioned that the lecture hall was typically on top of the list too.
Well, in the F&F committee, the lecture hall was certainly on the top of their list that night, and/or the multimedia space, that was, but I know that the tiered lecture hall to them was the creme de la creme for their want list, but, if we could do it.
I mean, that might,
Okay, I'm gonna ask the question, Shelley, you're here. You're familiar with that building as anybody is. If we build a new central cafeteria, is there enough room to do the business enterprise stuff and the bean and do a media center in that existing space? Plus,
Media room, yeah, I mean, not media, new media
Okay.
center, we've got a media center, but yeah.
well,
Media room.
in thinking about Robert's point about the arts, turning that hallway and making that, you know, like a grandiose passageway, I like that idea. But the practicality is we're not building any walls to give you what you need, so that leaves money left over to do some of these other things. And just like right now, we're renting a refrigerator truck for summer lunch. There's no point in removing that cooler, cause you can use it for the bean, right? There's no point in removing the freezer, cause Becky can use it for extra storage in the summertime. Doesn't have to run all year long, we can turn it on and off when we want to. The space is still there. So, you know, the F&F committee's focus has been trying to get $1.50 value out of every dollar we spend, and I think this is a pretty good thing. Jeremy, what's the cost on doing the entrances like MES in both of these buildings, at the high school and the?
Okay, at the high school, now this was if you were to construct a new office coming off.
No, we're talking the other one, using the classroom and just putting the double doors in and walling off the first floor of the stairway.
Okay. Let me find that. So if we did the front classroom, put an attendance area, secure area, let me add this. That was about $162,750. And then another 61,000 to create the vestibule.
Okay, so just call it 250,000.
So, yep.
Okay, and what was the one at MES?
that was a little bit more.
That one to relocate to the classrooms in the front was about 400,000.
So we're at 3 million right there doing those three things.
Do I lose a classroom there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. So I lose Reichenbach's
Yeah.
room,
yes.
and it's not replaced any place.
Well,
That could
we
be-
haven't got that far yet.
Yeah, just, that could be a problem.
It could be, I mean, if we can
Yeah.
find, if
Yeah.
there's a space
Yeah.
available.
At $250 a square foot, we can find you an internal classroom somewhere versus spending $2 million doing that other renovation, cause we're only at 3 million right now, and Becky's got a new kitchen. If we add in another $1 million for repurposing all the space back there around the cafeteria, and maybe you get another classroom, we're still only at $4 million. You know, so. Comments, questions?
What else is out there?
Well, I don't really wanna talk about MES tonight, but we're at 4 million for, yeah, we're at 4 million including her office, so we're still pretty conservative with what we're gonna have, so going down the list, do you have a price on the lecture hall, or an additional gym, or I'm trying to think what else was on there.
Yeah, an additional auxiliary gym, you're talking about 21,000 square feet, was 5.2 million.
And that's built from the ground up, like
Yep.
extra space.
Yeah, with some couple locker rooms as part of that. And I don't know what the seating capacity would be on that. That was just obviously a rough number.
What was the price on the lecture hall?
So you did want us to speak freely, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's the work session, please.
And I don't want to speak for Eric, but the core committee, not one of us put gym or alternative gym, and I shared that with you, why? Not that we're not advocates for athletics, but we saw what happened a couple years ago, and we saw that these are the priorities though. So I know we've got, it looks like a figure that would fit in what you're talking about, but that's a struggle for them. I think it's just fair to share that.
Yeah,
You know, we're
absolutely.
respectful and, you know, we support the board and we respect you, but there's not a person on here that signed on for that.
Signed on.
And or constituents, yeah, go ahead.
Signed on for what?
For an alternative, talk to me if I'm wrong, but they was pretty adamant that these need to come before a gym. And I'm a catch coach, like I'm all about athletics, but that came first for them.
Was that because of the 2 years ago? Was it because you
I
didn't
think
think
we
the
felt like
board?
we shouldn't say the word athletic.
Yeah,
When we were meeting, we were thinking
And it was like what I
academic
shared,
mostly.
because we were a little gun shy
so you're,
about what happened a couple years ago, sorry,
yeah,
yeah.
no, so, and to Raju's point, right, it's, you're trying to predict what's gonna fly, not actually what you may need.
Well, I don't know that I would attribute that would necessarily.
Okay.
Filter.
Maybe a couple of us. What did you think, Javen?
You know,
From your constituents, for just,
we were just, we wanted to do the students right. And so we were focused on our academic building. We didn't look into the athletic portion. It wasn't
We didn't
because
tell
we
them
didn't.
not to, yeah.
Yeah, we weren't told not to. It's just, what do we need to do in this building, because it feels, I mean, I started in 1994 and I came in the new building, it still feels new, but it's been 6 years. So there's some things that, as we've gone into other schools, that are pretty cool and pretty awesome and could be pretty attractive for us. So we looked at how do we make the experience the best for the students.
Okay, so what would you put next? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I mean, there's 150 things between 3 buildings, you know, focusing here, if we do the central cafeteria and there's a hallway. Now, okay, so depending on how big this cafeteria is, I don't have any idea the measurements of the thing. I can tell you there's 753 feet between this building and that building. So if the goal at the end is to have the buildings, something's gonna have to be built between here and there. So are you talking to me about internal, or talking to the board about internal modifications to the high school in addition to what we're talking about?
I think there'd have to be some, for sure, especially in that cafeteria. If we move the cafeteria away, we would do.
Well, yeah, there's funds for that. We're already talking about that's a given. If this, then those things, so what's next? We get the entrepreneurial
Robert, do
center,
you
we
have
get the
that
bean,
list
we
of
got
what
the
was in
media.
the first year? or
That
whatever?
was the very first, cost sheet, 1 to 3 years. Remodel existing office, creating 5 classrooms, that's part of the 7th grade thing. Renovate media center, relocate main computer room.
So what's the computer room again?
Yeah, what was
Yeah,
that?
what's that about?
Just curious.
If we would have opened up the media center and the walls and that space, we would have to relocate. the main
Oh,
computer
there is
room.
isn't that used for, home ec
It's a
now?
classroom.
Is
It
it
would
used for
be-
home ec, or like,
It's essentially
They're
where the,
talking about the servers.
the server room.
Servers are in the meeting.
server.
Oh.
It's just a big closet with one.
okay, so the server room.
Okay, I got the list here now. This is the strategic plan cost updated. I don't know if this is the same one you got, Jerry.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's got A, 1 through 8, which was construct a new office with secure entrance, which was 1.1 million. That was the 5,200 square feet. And then, so if we move on down renovate media center into learning commons. Well, we're not, those prices aren't gonna work for this. Renovate existing classrooms for the bean, I mean, if we do the central cafeteria, those things already happen. We will have to allocate some money, but those already happen. And there is an auxiliary gym and locker room addition, 2,100 square feet at $250 a square foot was $5 million. And then it says fob exterior doors, which we've already done. Then it comes back to relamping existing fixtures with LED, digital sign, classroom door upgrade, track repavement, move FFA to existing kitchen. Let's talk about that, because I heard you're not in favor of that. What do you need? Mike asked you the question. So there's a FFA, it says move FFA to existing kitchen. Do you need a kitchen in your room?
To be perfectly honest, I would like to have a stove or two in my room. I do not need an entire kitchen. I need an area where I can do food science labs.
What kind of money are we talking?
But I do not need
$400.
a kitchen.
Well, the
I don't
question,
need a kitchen.
I think the question, move it to the old kitchen, right? That was the question on this? Move it to the existing kitchen?
Yeah, that was an idea.
Okay.
That idea was there before we found out how important the bean and the entrepreneurial learning.
Not that FFA isn't
What's the term
important.
I'm looking for here, Shelley?
When they were talking about moving the FFA into the kitchen, and Dave and I both thought that was probably not gonna be.
It's really, I mean, if someone could show me something that they thought would be better, I'm open to ideas. But where we are now is ideal in terms of being located by the greenhouse, in terms of being able to do things outside. You know, we have an exterior door, which is great. I know Robert asked me that night that you guys were over there, what's something you really need? And I told him that night I needed a stove. And since then, I thought about, I am coaching something 12 months a year. Take out July. I'm not coaching anything in July. So 11 months a year, I'm coaching something, sometimes 3 things. I have all these supplies and nowhere to put them. I would love to have a storage building, an exterior storage building outside between the greenhouse and the building. There's just that dead space on the west side of the building, on the east side of the greenhouse. There's dead space there. I would love to have, excuse me, I would love to have an exterior storage building out there to put things for soil dredging, to put things for forestry dredging, to put things for leadership contest items, you know. And so that would free up room within my classroom, because it is busy and it is full and it is, I love it, but if I could just have somewhere to store some things.
What's in the barn right across from the greenhouse now?
Lots of
That's-
things.
Yeah, that's all they store athletic things in there, they store bus things in there.
Fruit.
They store the blowers in there, the
Yeah, in
snow
November.
blowers, the golf carts, the rangers.
Yeah, pull-out
Thousands
mats,
and
high jump
thousands.
mats, hurdles.
Hundreds
Just
of
popping on the list, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah, well,
needs
there's some
5,000
things popping on the list, but I'm also thinking since it's already there and it's already so close, maybe we build
depends.
something for the
Yeah,
athletics a
the
little
shed.
closer to the athletic
Two
field
stoves.
and
She's
repurpose that
2,500,
space for
3,000.
you. Because the problem with putting, unless it's a temporary building where you're talking about, that sewer line runs right up through there, so we can't put a permanent building on top of that.
No, it's where the asphalt already is there.
Yeah, it's just she just needs a portable shed, you know, like
Okay.
8 by 12.
Yeah, nothing that big.
Okay.
Something that's weather resistant, you know, that snow or rain is not gonna affect the supplies, but yeah, just a place to store something.
It can't be any wider than 8 feet.
Okay.
Is it the same size of building what Aaron built out there last year out there?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
If, very similar.
Heartland doesn't still build sheds, do they?
They build
Yeah,
homes,
build
they're not
sheds,
gonna build sheds.
Yeah.
We're done. Sorry.
Now we're working.
Need to bring that up.
She needs about $3,000.
It's a lighthearted comment here, but most teachers ask for a storage closet. Gwen Mize asked for a storage shed, just FYI.
Hey,
You go,
Just
girl.
note that.
Dreaming big, dreaming big.
don't tell my wife, she'll ask for one
Okay, so
too.
Moving on, get your request to Jeremy. Greenhouse, $200,000. Oh, I guess we're back to you again.
No. And I think what some of these items on here, as Dana worked this, not knowing exactly where this new cafeteria would go, could mean relocating some of these items. So that's what this part is. The greenhouse would potentially maybe need to be relocated depending how and where the cafeteria was built, if it's back in that area. Same as, I think, down here, the bus barn, talked about relocating that, or the bus pen where the buses are stored. You may have to move some of those things depending on the placement of this new cafeteria. If it was built out that direction, we may have to relocate some things. So he just threw some numbers down.
Okay, I do see here, Jeremy, there's, for the cafeteria to become the Bean, the Media Center Access Annex, and the NPR, he's got a price in here, $817,000.
Yep.
So that's for all your internal.
Yeah, that'd just be if you wanted to relocate those areas into the old cafeteria, just putting numbers and building walls and those type of things. Basically just doing it by the square footage that's there.
Comments, questions?
Whatever it is, right? Depending on cafeteria location.
Mm-hmm. But it gives us an idea. New central kitchen, like it says, $875, new central cafeteria is $945.
What about the security cameras down there in section D, internal and external? I mean, that's part of security.
Yeah, it's $100,000. We got CARES Act, there's $200,000 left in CARES Act, or we can put it in here, you know, that's. Sounds to me like Dr. Lippy and Amy and Tommy need to get together and do a little whittling on this. You know, pick out their top 3, 4, or 5, and then bring it back maybe for the July meeting as we go forward. What do you guys think?
I thought
What's the document you're looking at, though? I don't know.
This is the one that was presented at one of the meetings, Jeremy might be able to add, this has got all the strategic plan costs updated, which was after your tour and the tour at MES. This is the one I got here is all high school stuff.
Is that this one? Is this all high school?
It's 3
Yes.
pages.
Yes.
I got one. I got the high school one, that's it.
Oh, okay.
There's A, B, C, D.
If I'm just make,
Hey, wait a
whatever I'm
minute,
tasked
I
with,
got
I mean, I'll get with Amy.
copies here, John.
Tommy and Amy are probably like done though, you know, their contract's coming to an end here soon. As far as like, they'll be out, but I mean, we can get together if you need us to kind of, I'm not sure what you would like us to do, but, you know, we can try to accomplish that goal, whatever it is. You mentioned like us pick off a few
But you got
things.
your core committee here, and you put your list together.
Yeah.
You know, just, you know, as updated, maybe just go through there and say, if board's gonna do this in phases, these are the top 4 or the top 5 in green that we want in the first phase, and this is what we can wait a couple of years for. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Yeah, since the 7th grade isn't gonna be over there, probably, I'm guessing. Yeah, nobody's really in favor of that. But some of these things are gonna be modified, right, or taken off the list, as opposed to some of the things that could come to the front.
Yeah.
And so we're not asking you to reinvent the wheel, just kind of reprioritize based upon that, and then definitely get this going with the facilities and the smaller group with Becky and other people.
So I think you sorted them by chronological order of how you wanted to do them, right, the last time before that list? I mean, could you just put like do something simple like an A, B, C, A's are the hot things you guys want, B's are kind of either dependent on A's or this or that, and then C's are kind of, I mean, that's what we do in industry, we just try to keep it simple and use a little scale like that, on priority.
Okay, and you're talking about after the centralized cafeteria, you want that one listed too here? Yes, you're saying yes?
Do you guys want it listed?
Yeah, just.
That's all that matters.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I know what you're talking about, so make sure we come back with what you want. So obviously, centralized cafeteria is going to be A, that's what we put on there, right? That's our number one.
Up to you.
Well, I mean, it is, so number one would have an A, so A's are number one, and 3 or 4 of those, and then we go from there. B's the next list, C, and now, you know, if you know, I kind of get a ballpark, like, when you're talking phases, you're kind of thinking a certain amount of money, I'm thinking in the phase, right? Like, you don't want us to go out and get
I'm thinking what's
that's
essential
gonna
for
cost
right
10
now is
million.
what I'm thinking about, you know.
What was that?
I'm thinking about what's essential for right now, we'll figure the money part out.
Okay.
Once we kind of know
All right.
what you need and then that priority, then we can pull it up, then we can start hacking up the money and seeing what we can afford. We'll have further conversations about what, you know, one thing we're trying to do is not do something like for 30 years and lock everybody down in the future, because who knows what's gonna happen, right? So I mean, the better we can plan this, and if we can phase it or do, you know, like 5-year plan, 10-year plan, something like that, I think that's better going in the future. You heard Jim Smith over there say something, what was his statement? We haven't invested in the schools for 30 years, right? And then the question that popped in my mind is why? What do we do with the money? I mean, that's past tense, but that's what's always on my mind here, going, okay, what are we doing with this money and making sure that it's essential to what the people, the internal customers, need in the schools, basically. So.
And to that point, to what he's talking about, just like when I used to sit right over there by that pole, the roof was leaking so bad on this building, there was water stains running down that pole. Because, and I won't throw anybody under the bus, the corporation, we had to go raise taxes and pass a bond in order to fix the roof on this building. What we don't want to do is put boards in the future in that position. You know, we want to keep that money train level, but the people that sit in the seats after us have to have the flexibility that, you know, if the world changes and all of a sudden robotics is it, you know, and we have to put in a giant robotics lab, we need to be able to go borrow money to do that. Or if a boiler quits, we gotta be able to fix that.
We don't want to lock the corporation, the community, or the board in a pinch, so. Yeah.
Okay, so just to review. We compiled this over 2 years, this priority list. I'm not sure where this list came from. There's a few things that have been added to this that weren't on our list.
So-
Are there things that are non-negotiable that have to be on our list now from this? Because this group didn't sign on with this. They don't even know what this is really, but we do know this.
Yeah.
This is probably what we're gonna work with.
That's
Is
fine.
that fair for you? Because this is
Yeah.
kind of what that's what they're.
That's what you guys want. That's what we're asking for.
Right?
Yeah, to be very honest with you, our list hasn't changed.
That's
And
fine.
every time we came over
We want to know what you guys want.
Right, but what I wanna say is, every time we came over here for a meeting, there was a different list. And then we'd all stand around saying, why is this list different? And then we get called to a meeting where we're taking a tour of a building with plans that we weren't a part of helping with features on the plans that never were a part of what we had discussed or we had talked about, and that's a huge, huge problem.
Well-
Because then it makes us wonder what's happening between that building and this building, where all of these things get altered and changed without our input. When we put our list together, we were being really careful, and I said this at that financial meeting, about not asking for for things that were ridiculously expensive or extravagant. But we also do need some things in our building that when we bring somebody in who's from the outside, who's from Warsaw or Whitco or Wabash or Northfield, that they think, wow, this is something that we don't have at our school that we have to offer. And so we were trying to balance that the whole time, but it's been really, really frustrating, to be very frank, to come over here and be asked to explain things that were never a part of what we had talked about. And I think the rest of the committee can vouch for the fact that there were these other things that kept popping up. And we don't want to be disrespectful. And if some of those are your wishes and things that you think the high school should have, that's great. But those things were never communicated to us in that way to say, you know what, you guys might want to think about this because I've been, as a school board member, to another building and saw this. Is this something you think we might want at the high school? But that never happened. And so when John and I came away from that meeting, I think the greatest thing about it was we were talking face to face. You were being totally transparent. We were being totally transparent. And I felt incredibly positive about where we could go. And I'm more than willing, even though I sat in this almost exact same place, I can't even remember when, and prioritized a list, and there was a little side column where we were supposed to put dollar amounts to things. I'm a high school English teacher. I don't know how much something's supposed to cost, and yet I was tasked with that one evening to sit here and try to dream up how much it might cost to have those kinds of things. That's out of our skill set. We know what works with kids. We know what kinds of things we see when we go into other buildings. We try to be really fiscally responsible because we need it to be. We don't think we have an extravagant budget here at the school that we can just throw money around. But we also know that we want our students to have a really, really good experience. And some of that comes as simple as having places they can charge their devices, having things in classrooms where they can present, and not have to try and configure it or maneuver it around to make it workable. We've been working with it for a long time. And I think, you know, as we talk about marketing our school, it's much more than about a logo. It's about what do you get when you get in there, and what do you see when you're in that building. And so we can do the work you want us to do, and we've been doing the work you want us to do, we thought. But it's also been a little frustrating because it seems like the target just keeps moving, and it's hard for us to know what it is we're supposed to do.
And that was very well said, and welcome to the club.
No, Mr. Zinsmeister, thank you for sharing that. We too have, at least as far as I'm concerned, have been very frustrated too, because things keep changing too. So I think it's a healthy thing for us to do this evening, kind of come together and realize that. We want nothing more than to do exactly what you just said.
Well, I'll share this with everybody. I've been on this board for 2.5 years. In the meeting that the F&F committee, I wish the whole board could have been there. The meeting that we had with the F&F committee and you gentlemen was absolutely the best meeting that I've taken part of in 2.5 years on this board. Now, to answer some of the questions, the updated list came after the board took a tour of the building and we listened to the security people. And, you know, the comment was made by Becky about the cafeteria, and the ideas just kind of morphed and the things got added to the list. So Dr. Lippy, to your point, if anybody on the board disagrees, speak up. I think you need to work off of both of those lists, not just the one that you brought, because we're at the point now, you guys have worked really hard on the education piece, but we got to do the facility piece. This whole thing's going to have to go like this. And the only way that's going to happen is if you guys go through both of those lists and then come back. We know the bean's not negotiable. We know that the business entrepreneurship isn't negotiable. That those are the two number things that the two number one things. I'll spit it out here in a minute. That you brought to the table. But I think we need to work off of both of these lists and come up with
That second list you're talking about is this one you just handed me, Brian. I just wanna make sure I know.
It says
This one-
SB, it says
Yes, that's
SB
it.
costs updated in
It
the
was-
upper left corner.
It just, it's with the centralized cafeteria costs
Yeah,
and
that's the one.
so
Moving
we'd
the
ask for,
beam,
yeah. It's kind of
So
in
there's
conjunction with
just
your
a lot of
list
things that
too.
are confusing on here when I see Red Barn, Bus Pen. I mean, guys, that's just not gonna be, we don't understand, like, that's not gonna be probably on our.
Right,
Pull it out, you
So
know?
you just would
Yeah.
understand, like, that's not gonna work its way to the top
and
of our
that,
list.
like, I think it was already mentioned that that's on there,
Yeah, cause
if
if something moves.
something
yeah,
needs to be moved,
Yeah,
There's a price tag to do that.
all right.
right.
he was throwing prices at things that we might have to do to get from A to B. So, take your list and your identifiable stuff, and then you can look at this and say, okay, we're gonna need, if the cafeteria is gonna become the bean and the media center, there's $817,000. We already got the price, we just need to know if that's what you wanna do.
Yeah, there's a logistics thing here, guys. I mean, this is the time that they've allotted for this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's some work here that, now, they're all on summer break.
Yeah.
I'll be back in 2 weeks. I mean, it's gonna be a quick turnaround if you're saying July, and I don't know what their schedules look like. So, to be fair, I'm gonna scan both these, PDF them to you, okay? The expectation is, make some notes that are important to you.
You got their priority? Okay.
Is this the
Guys,
work?
if we, I mean, I don't know how much more time, but since they're here, I mean, we'd like the time to maybe do this now, is that,
Can we do it right now?
can we,
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what you have left for us.
This is a work session, go
But
for
that's
it.
what,
that was my
why I got them,
idea
I mean, I
tonight
just
is-
don't wanna take more of their summer or try to fit, cause we're
course
not
not.
gonna be all together again,
Yeah, go for it.
so,
We want you know, it's like we said in the meeting,
yeah.
the strategic plan is gonna move forward, we wanna do it with you.
Okay.
You know, we're 2 years in.
Came around. Sounds like there's a lot of healing and a lot of understanding, and I think that happened tonight.
You guys got anything else? There's a few things on here.
I think
Robert,
this room's really-
do you guys have anything else you want to talk about here, or?
Oh,